Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional. Today, we're brought to you by Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. How do you delight your clients? What does it mean for you to go above and beyond when serving them? Today, Morgan Weber, owner of Lucky Pups Adventures, joins the show to share how she helps her clients live a full and happy life through a holistic approach of care and walking through them through every season. She helps us understand the important process of grieving with a client whenever their pet passes away and why it's so critical as a business owner that you stay connected, engaged, and continue to experiment and not be afraid when things don't work out. Let's get started.
My name's Morgan Weber, and we started pet sitting in 2013. So we're into our 10th year this year, and we started on the side like so many other people, and it just kind of kept growing. And then in 2018, I left my full-time job. I had gone to school to be an architect, and I was working in the architecture field for about 6 years. And I was just like, I got to the point where I either needed to get my licensing exam and be an architect or quit my job and be a dog walker. And I decided that being a dog walker was a much better fit for me. So did that full time. And then we started hiring staff. And so, that's a short story. That's 10 years wrapped into about 30 seconds.
We'll unpack that just a little bit more. 2013, what got you started in pet care? What was that first couple like?
Yeah. So we had adopted a dog from a coworker's friend. It's one of those like friend of a friend deals. And this coworker's friend had gotten this dog because his dad had passed away. And so we ended up with this dog and she was amazing. And one day my coworker said, hey, we used to take our dog. So our dog's name was Casey. And he'd say, we used to take our dog to Casey's house and, he would pet sit for us. Would you like to pet sit for us instead? And I said, sure. Why not? Like I've got my weekends open. We were just out of college. And so, we were living in a new city. We didn't have a ton of friends. And so I was like, I've got all of this free time in the world. Like, sure. Why not? I'll pet sit for you. And it just kind of started like that. And we thought like, gosh, this is pretty fun. Something probably not a lot of people know is that the architecture industry does not pay well. So we were actually living in like subsidized housing while working this professional career. And so I was like, I really need to make some extra money. And so we just started pet sitting. We started with maybe that first year, we had maybe like 5 clients or something. And then we actually moved and we moved closer to home and we knew we were going to be here for a long time. And we really said, let's do this again. Like, let's start pet sitting again. And we were involved in a dog rescue and a few other groups. And we just started growing and growing and growing. Kind of word of mouth took over. And pretty soon I was walking dogs on my lunch break. And I got to the point where I was like, I cannot keep leaving my job to go do my other job to come back again to do my job. And my bosses at the time were awesome and they were like super accommodating. But, I got to the point where I was like, I need to focus on one or the other and I can't keep splitting my time. And pet sitting won.
That's hard. I know many people face that decision and it can be pretty terrifying to be in that moment of going, especially whenever you have an 8-hour, 9-hour day job and you go, I have all my dedication to this. This is my reliability. This is my consistency. I have this thing. It's growing. It doesn't replace the other thing yet, but maybe if I devote more time, maybe it will grow. And there's a lot of fear in that process. And so how did you walk through that fear? Did you sit down? I know some people are comforted by numbers. Other people just dive in with passion. Kind of what was that like?
So I'm kind of a big picture person, which is probably why I ended up in architecture. I like the big picture. And so I kind of looked at our finances and we kind of found Dave Ramsey in college. And we were not like super strict, like beans and rice people, but like we really didn't have consumer debt. And that made it a lot easier to say, okay, like the minimum amount of money we need to survive every month is X. And we are basically making that between my husband's job and and the pet sitting. Like we're basically there. And so we basically brought the boat really, really close to the dock. So when we did make that jump, it was not super comfortable, but it wasn't like we just jumped into the water and we had to like swim to the boat. We were pretty close to it. But yeah, it's a really hard decision because you do have to have some trust that this thing that you've built will continue on. Like you said, if I put a little bit more effort into this and I can put a little bit more focus on it, can it keep building? Or have I kind of hit market saturation, and you don't really know until you try. And so I kind of figured, well, if this doesn't work, I'm not leaving my career in a bad place. Like if I have to, I could probably call him up again and get my old job back. Or like I worked in retail in college. It's like I could go find a retail job. Like I could make money somewhere if I had to, but I was just like, I'm ready to make this jump and I'm ready to try something new.
And it's that newness that can be it is a lot of that scary part comes in, because we have that predictability, we have that quote unquote stability, whatever that means, depending on how markets are going. But we look at something and it's this opportunity before us and we've got to try and jump that. And I know that kind of thinking never really stops as we grow in business, because there's always going to be parts where we find ourselves looking at something going, is that an opportunity, right? Is that an opportunity? And so how do you, going through your business, you're coming up on 10 years. How do you stay fresh and stay adaptive to respond to those kind of new opportunities that come along? Because I know as a lot of people, as we get older and as we get in our business longer, we tend to fall back to safety, security, stability, and no longer take those kind of chances.
I think it's probably built into my personality in a way. If anyone likes Enneagrams, I'm an Enneagram 7, which means that I am always into the new thing and like the new exciting thing that is always up. It's just, to me, that's exciting. And I know that there's a lot of people who don't like, it's very much against their kind of ingrained personality to want to do something new. They want to keep doing the thing that's working. And I tend to see a lot of opportunity. I joke that I was in Future Business Leaders of America in high school, like this little business club, because I just wanted something to do to hang out with my friends and like go to cool conferences. That's literally the only reason why I was in this club.
Social club.
And I was always like, I'm never going to be a business owner. Like, I'll never be an entrepreneur. Like, I'm just here to learn some Robert's rules for meetings and like have a good time. And then I know, right? This is my truth here, Colin.
Good.
And anyway, so I've turned into a serial entrepreneur. We have multiple businesses now. So we've got our pet sitting and our dog walking. My husband does aquarium maintenance. And then we also started a memorial candle business. And it sometimes feels like these things are really disparate. But in truth, they all pull together under the same umbrella of serving how we want to serve our clients. But it really has been a moment of opportunity where we said, gosh, like my husband works at an aquarium store. And we thought, gosh, there's people who need their aquariums cleaned. Like we could do that. And then in 2020, one of our dogs died and I was really struggling with how to feel better. And I stumbled upon lighting a candle in remembrance of somebody or of your pet. And I said, gosh, this was amazing. I bet there's other people who could use this too. And, I think I hear that from a lot of pet sitters. They say, my pet needed a good option. Like I was going out of town. I needed somebody to take care of them. Or, like in our situation where a friend said, hey, would you watch my dog for me? It just becomes these moments of opportunity. And I think as business owners, we either have the opportunity to say, yes, like this sounds awesome. Let's try it out. Or say like, no, that doesn't sound too good. I'm going to pass on this. And so it's just, I think, partially too, do you see the world as an abundance of opportunities, or do you see the world as a place where, okay, I found my niche and I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to keep going?
Well, and it also is a different viewpoint as far as like holistic view approach. Many of us say, we have a holistic view of the pet, but that can come in two different aspects. I've been realizing more of you can stack horizontally, stack vertically, on a dog and go, what services can I provide that dog? Versus going out horizontally around that dog and go, what other touch points exist in the life of that dog, their pet parents, and their community? And A, should I be serving them in that way? And B, how can I? And that's definitely two different approaches. And so, whenever you mention like the aquarium business, your candle memory flame business, you have these opportunities to grow out around that. And that gives a much more holistic approach to the life of the pet and their dog.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in architecture school, I had a professor who told a story about a rail line. And he said, why don't you hear about whatever rail, I don't even remember, right? Whatever rail line he was talking about. And he said, if that rail line had looked at their business as a way to move things, they would have invested in, like airplanes and, over the road trucking and all these other things. But they were so focused on being a rail line company that they drove themselves into the ground because eventually they got bought up by some other rail company, and so it was he was talking about that in terms of architecture, like, okay, you have to kind of think about, you're not just serving your client in one particular way, you're really serving them their overall need, not necessarily this little niche need, like a dog needs to go for a walk. Okay, I'm not necessarily serving my client because their dog needs to go for a walk. I'm serving my client because they need some like peace of mind because they're away from home and their dog needs some enrichment, or we got to think about it from a larger perspective, kind of a broader perspective, like you said. And we can see a lot more opportunities again on how we can serve somebody that isn't necessarily this one thing that we've already thought that we're doing.
Yeah. So how do we stay fresh and open to opportunities? It starts with us, right? And thinking and how we view ourselves. A lot of times, I know it's, I just do dog walks. I just do drop-ins, but just one little phrase, switch that. You can go, I don't provide dog walks. I provide dog walking services. I provide drop-in services, which expands that definition considerably to what you're bringing to bear on that client and their pet, whether that is the peace of mind, whether that's the communication, the certifications, the training, whatever you have, you're expanding that way out. And that's where we can start to find those other niches and go, I could do that, or that's in my wheelhouse, or this is how. But that takes us expanding our view of how we define who we are in our business.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that pet sitters kind of maybe forget in a way, because it is, we think so much all about the pets, but really we're customer service agents. And we are, I kind of say tongue in cheek that the pet's owner is our client. They're the ones who pick up their phone and book us. They are the ones who, write the check or, click that pay now button. And it can be really hard to focus on the people side of the business because we're so focused on doing the best pet care we possibly can, that sometimes we forget that we have to make sure we're taking as good of care of the people as we are the pets, because we aren't just walking a dog. We're providing an entire customer service experience.
Well, it's to who are we serving? Who are we delighting in our services? And with that, it's going, how do we make sure we are delighting the client and not just doing the job? Because that's at the end of the day, it's really easy to just come in, do the service, leave, come in, do the service, leave, without really making it an experience. So how do you focus on that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say is it's hard to do because especially maybe you get a little bit tired, you kind of overextend yourself, you get a little bit burnt out. And again, that people side becomes much less of the focus because, you are there with the pet and you're interacting with the pet. And now the challenge, I think, is that you have to tell the owner what you're doing with that pet. And so that way they understand that value that you're bringing, not just because the dog is getting a walk and it's getting a bathroom break, but that you are creating, like you'd mentioned, a whole experience for this pet. So we try to tell stories a lot. So, we try to include little anecdotes or, fun little stories about what their pets are doing. Like where we got freezing rain last night. And so, I included in a report something about the pet said like, no, thank you. I'm not going outside in that. And, and it's one of those things where it can be frustrating as the pet sitter because you're like, ma'am, you got to go pee. And she's like, no, I refuse to. And you do your best. And, if you can tell that story in a way that the client finds endearing, or, she replied back this morning, like, oh my gosh, that sounds just like her. You've nailed her personality. So she felt a connection to us and, and that we were really understanding her pet. So I think that can be a really good way to story tell through your visits, and not just saying, well, we went outside and we went on a walk and, she peed and then we came back and then I said goodbye. That's one way to tell a story. And another way is to really get into kind of the emotional undertones that you can tap into to really help your clients feel like you understand them, you understand their pets, and that you really adore them, like that you are delighted by their pets. And that can come across. I did a phone job for a while. I was like a front desk person. And when they trained me, they were like, so I need you to smile when you answer the phone. And I was like, what kind of like misogynistic crap is it to tell me to smile to answer the phone? And then I was like, no, this is real. Like, you sound different when you have a smile on your face and you're talking. And the same thing I think comes when you're writing a report. So if I've maybe had a frustrating visit, I take a minute and I just go out to my car and I cool down, or maybe I drive to my next client before I write that report, because I try to be in a good space myself before I try to make that connection point with the client. But yeah, it can be a challenge, but I think it's what can set us apart when we're thinking about being pet care professionals. And I don't know about everybody else, but I know in our area, I've really seen an influx of new pet sitters lately. And a lot of times that comes when the economy comes down a little bit. People have more free time, or maybe they're looking for a side job to help fill in those gaps, much like how many of us started. But there's a difference, I think, in if we want to be seen as a professional, we need to do certain things to help bring that professionalism to our services. And finding those connection points can be a really good way to distinguish yourself from other pet sitters, or as a new pet sitter to help bring that professionalism with you so you can really stand out from the crowd. And, if you give somebody really good service, they're way more likely to tell their friends about you. Word of mouth is huge in pet sitting because it's such a, I'll use the word intimate service. We're in their homes. It's high touch. It's very personal. And people, they want to know that somebody else had a good experience with you before they're going to recommend you. They're not going to say, oh, I just kind of saw this person on social media and they looked decent, but that's one referral. And another referral is, oh my gosh, I met Colin and Megan and they just did an amazing job, and their team knew my pets and they sent me these great stories and they sent amazing pictures. That's a completely different referral that's going to really spread throughout the community.
It really is. And I know there's a kind of a debate or discussion on how to send the updates. And a lot of people do just report cards with little check boxes on them. Other people do handcrafted, written things. And that's really where we've gone to, because we really want to add that personal touch, that personalization, be able to tell those stories. I can't tell you how many comments we get from clients who just love that we talk about the weather so much in our updates. Like, people, they want to know, is it raining? Is it windy? Is there a storm coming? Like, these are concerns because they want to know, oh man, I need you to tell you to put down the umbrella, or I need you to do this, or, what's the rain gauge? You'd be surprised how many people love that kind of information. And you can easily just take a few minutes and tell that. And I know I've had those moments where I second guess myself on, oh, should I put myself in, try and get this personalized to the dog and what they're thinking, because I don't want to misjudge and put a personality on them that their owners don't have. But the only way that you know is you just try and you do that. Yeah. And I guarantee you spend enough time with the dog and with any animal, you're going to pick up on its personality. And then the client is going to know this person's really paying attention. And we've had clients who save not just the photos we send, but the whole update. And it's always the clients who never respond to our messages. It's so funny. They never respond. And then I'll be out, or somebody will call me and they'll go, I was on the vacation when you took care of so-and-so's dog. And she just sat and showed all those photos the entire time. And we laughed and we cried. And it was so fun. And I need you to take care of our cat this time. And it's you just don't know what's happening out there. But that's part of it. You do what you can. You do the best that you can every time. And you trust this will take me forward. This will serve my clients better. And I know things will come from that.
Absolutely. And I think too, as we're going, as a potential recession, you never know, like they've been saying a recession for a while now. So we'll see if this holds up or not. But especially when we start thinking about what are ways that I need to, really make sure that I have a good retention on my current clients. It's always easier to serve your existing clients, just like serve the socks off of them, than it is to have to go out and find new clients. And so what are ways that we can really help our current clients feel like we value them, right? And so I think it's hard too, sometimes when you're in a service industry, how do you show your appreciation for your clients? And I think that, these little things really do make a difference. We started leaving welcome home cards, and we started signing them. So whoever's coming over to visit the pets, we have a team. So we work as a team approach. So usually there's, between maybe like 2 and 4 people visiting a family, depending on how long they're gone. And so we all started signing the cards, because I was actually at a client's house who had a housekeeper come over, and it was like a Merry Maids, and they left a card and they signed it. So they knew, in a way, Merry Maids is a lot more anonymous. They know who is in their house, essentially. And when we send our reports, they do have everybody's names on them. So they know who's been there, but it's different to get like an electronic report with a name on it than it is to see somebody's handwriting on a card. And so then we started writing a little note, like, oh, it's so great to see them again. I hope you had a great trip. Or if we know that they're going on a trip for something, maybe they're going on, a trip for a funeral or for a wedding or an anniversary or something, we try to tailor that note to that occasion if we happen to know what it is. Just as one more personal touch to let them know, like, hey, we see you, we value you, like, we hope you had a good time, or, we're so sorry that you had to take this trip. That kind of stuff too, I think, can go a long ways.
Well, and that gets to a question I had about in step 2 of your process for your new clients. You say, we prepare and plan. And
Yes.
I love this language because it really is our responsibility as the business owners, as the pet care professionals, to plan, to prepare. So how do we get better at that? What does this stage of the process look like for you and your team?
For me, it really depends on the pets, and depends on the personality of the pets. So we have a few clients where we, it might be that only I visit them for a little while because maybe they're a little bit more nervous, or it just takes us some time to get to know them better before I introduce them to the rest of our team, or I even decide maybe which members of our team to introduce this pet to, because each of our team members has different specialities or different personalities. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our best to line up the pet with our care professionals that we think is going to do be the best match for them. So there's that part of it, but it might also be like, hey, this is an older dog who's maybe having some incontinence problems. We're going to bring over some of our puppy pads. We're going to bring over some of our washable, like absorbent pads. So we can maybe put that on top of their dog bed. So if they do have an accident, we don't have to wash their dog bed as much. Or maybe it's, hey, this dog is a little bit more nervous. And so we want to make sure that we have really good treats when we walk in that house. So that way they know like, oh yeah, this is my friend. And they feed me. I said, I'm not above bribery when it comes to pets.
No.
Like here. Yeah. As long as it's okay with the people, right? Like making sure the treats are fine, but we'll do that kind of stuff. Or, just knowing, hey, this person, yes, they want 3 visits a day, but their dog normally eats at like 5 o'clock. Or maybe it's the opposite of, we're going to get there at 5, but, their dog needs to eat more at like 3:30. So when we're there at noon, we're going to give them a little snack so they don't have hunger pukes by the time we show up at 5. Those kind of things start to play into it. Or we have in our office like a portable radio, like an old school digital clock radio. And for some clients where they don't maybe have a TV, like we'll bring that along and plug it in. So that way the pet gets a lot of like background noise that they would normally get if their person maybe works from home. So we try to do our best to really understand what that pet's routine is and then do our best. And obviously, if you're only visiting, 3 times a day, you can only do so much with that. But, we do our best to mimic whatever kind of routine that we can.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Claire from Acton Critter Sitters has this to say.
Time to Pet has honestly revolutionized how we do business. My sitters can work much more independently because they have ongoing access to customer and pet information without relying on me. I save hours upon hours of administrative time on billing, processing payments, and generating paychecks.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. Well, and it's just thinking through those scenarios, right? Of reviewing that information. And I remember when we do, it was back from our science days of whenever you get a number, you get information, you always ask, what does this mean? What does this tell me, okay, I know an age of a dog. Okay, my brain should immediately be thinking at 15, what issues could be in this dog? What other lifestyle changes are they making? What could I do to improve this dog's life while their owner is away? And then I'm doing the research. I'm talking to people. That's that preparation that comes in of going, I'm not just reading a report and going, great, dog 7, cool, let's go. It's what does a 7-year-old dog for this breed and this health condition actually tell me about the kind of care I need to give? And obviously we're stacking that on top of the food and the exercise and the health condition and the expectations and all that, and putting all those pieces of that actual puzzle together. And then we layer on top of that what we can do to make it better. And then that's really what that comes down to, is that preparation side, and really not skipping that step. It's really easy to just go, great, thank you for the information, I'll be over tomorrow, and just show up and figure it out. But I don't know if you've ever done that, but man, we used to, and it doesn't end well most of the time. Or you get really caught off guard and you go, man, I should have known that. And so really taking that time to pour through, go, what other questions do I have? What red flags am I seeing? What are the 3-5 things I need to know more information about, that I need to follow up on before I show up and walk through this person's door?
Absolutely. Or we have, I've taken rugs, like rubber backed rugs, over to people's houses before, because maybe their elderly pet does great when they're home, but now when we get here, they're super excited when we show up at the door and they're like slipping all around. So we'll bring a rubber backed rug over. We have, some cat toys or puzzle toys, things like that. Or some people think, they just like, hey, my dog really needs a walk. And sometimes the thing is, your dog doesn't need a walk. Your dog needs some brain drain. So how can we maybe do a little bit of both and help you understand the value of the brain drain? And then you're like, oh gosh, this is working way better. Yeah, just do the brain drain, like skip the walk. There's ways that we can help our clients. And like you said, the better we know them, and the longer we're in business, the easier that is sometimes. Like I know my onboarding form is completely different from when we started, and even from a couple years ago. I've started finding better ways to ask questions that maybe remove the guilt that people feel about certain aspects of their pet's personality. So I might ask a question like, is there anything that we need to know about your pet in relation to XYZ? Or is there anything is there anything that we should be concerned about or be mindful of when we come over? That's a much better way to say, like, is your dog aggressive? And people are going to say, no, my dog is fine. Or I might ask the question, how does your dog act when somebody new comes into their home? That's a much better way to get a more truthful answer than just saying, has your dog ever bitten anybody? Or is your dog aggressive? Because people a lot of times feel a lot of, maybe guilt or stress about certain things. And if we can kind of do our best to remove any kind of objectivity, then we have a better way to get to that answer.
I have a great one for you. It's one that 11 years ago I never knew we would have to encounter. It's been serving this dog for several years now, and very recently his behavior totally changed. He's a chow. He's naturally a little bit protective of the door. He all of a sudden became extremely elevated to the point where on one visit we weren't able to get in through the door at all. We did not feel safe entering. Reached out to the client, asking some questions, trying to be as, just let her know, like, hey, we understand. I want to figure out, is he doing okay? Have you seen the vet? What's going on here? And the response was, well, when you first started serving me and him, I had just had a restraining order placed against my ex, and he started to show back up at the house now that the restraining order has expired. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, like totally different. We're going to take several steps way back. But that just started with a simple question of, hey, I observed this change, and we want to make sure that he's okay. And then how can we help and move on from there? And realizing that we may have a plan and it may be the best plan in the whole wide world, but then things happen. And we just have to embrace and openly communicate with the client and put together a plan about what that's going to look like, things we can do, how we can change. And that's the experience, the expertise, the teamwork that we bring to those situations at running our businesses to help them continue to have a good life with their pet. And it's, it's one of those of like, I hated having that conversation, and it didn't make me feel good at the end. And, it was a very weird place to be. It's like, I just wanted to come in and take your dog out to go pee, but like, okay, like I get it. Like, this is where we are now. And that's now that we know that, we can do so many things different and going from there.
And that really stresses too the importance of building up that relationship before you have to have that conversation. And, obviously, if it's a brand new client, you don't necessarily have a ton of time to do that work. But if it's a client you maybe have seen a couple times, the best thing that you can do, I think, is start to build that relationship from the beginning. And that can be through even your use of onboarding, or like I should say pre-boarding, like your social media. Your website, how do you talk to your clients before you actually talk to your clients to help them understand that you are the kind of person who wants to have those conversations, and who's open to having a more deeper understanding and a deeper relationship? Because if you had not maybe done some of those things that you had done, she might not have been comfortable telling you, like, hey, I've got this crazy ex who keeps showing up. That's a really personal conversation to have with somebody. And you have to have a really good level of trust in order for someone to even want to open up to you like that.
Right. And going we're the pet sitters here. Like, this isn't a conversation I'm sure, she expected to be having with us, either. But because we had built up a relationship and we had worked through several things prior to this, that's what that builds to you. And you get to that point where you can now tackle harder and harder things, which unfortunately is either going to happen just because of life eventually, or the dog ages and now we have more and more difficult conversations that we have to have. So these things happen naturally, but we have to do the groundwork and the preparation so that by the time that we get to those, we're ready for them, as ready as we'll ever be. You can't be ready 100%.
No, some things life just throws you in the deep end. And one thing we find a lot of having these hard conversations is, like you said, when people's pets get older, or, they have to start saying goodbye to pets. That's not something that people go into the pet sitting industry because they are really excited to do, like, care for people's pets as they're dying, or, as they're getting older. It's not something that anybody warns you about, nothing that anybody ever tells you. There's no manual that says, like, great, you're going to be a pet sitter. Awesome. You got to, like, have these contracts and these things. And by the way, a lot of pets are going to die and you've got to become emotionally ready to manage that, both for yourself and to help your clients through that process. And it's hard.
Yeah. When you have that, nobody told me that I was going to have a conversation one day when a client called me asking me if I thought it was time to put their dog down because of their age and illnesses. Right.
Yes.
Like, whoa, like, no, like those conversations just completely take the wind out of your day. And you're honest with them. You have one thing of serving clients for several years in a row is you have a track record documented through your software and communications with how things have been progressing, and you can just talk with them about how things are going and really just sit and listen to them at the end of the day. Right? I'm not going to go and say yes or no one way or the other, but we can help commiserate with them and help them feel assured that they'll be supported, right? With those kind of conversations come up, because it becomes a very deep relationship, even though, as odd as it is, as you mentioned earlier, Morgan, we never see the clients, right? They're never there. So all of a sudden, weirdly, we have this intimate relationship, close relationship with them that in some cases we feel may come out of nowhere, right? We'll be like, oh, I was just checking on your dog, and like, we're like best friends now, or whatever.
Yes. And, and some clients you just naturally connect more deeply with than others. So you don't want to put this out there that, like, every client is going to be your best friend, or you're going to have this amazing relationship, because that's not accurate. That's not real life. But, you do find those clients who they do trust you. And, sometimes that's hard because you do have to put a boundary up with some folks, or some of those questions. It's like, well, I'm not qualified to give you medical advice, or, these are some of these times it's questions that you need to talk with your vet about this. But, I do tell our clients that we are an objective third party that can be very helpful. We have actually, unfortunately, or I'll say fortunately or unfortunately, have caught severe illnesses in our clients because we don't see our clients necessarily every day. And even those clients we do see maybe 3 or 4 times a week, it's easier for us to see those small changes because we are not with them 24/7. We don't live with them all the time. And we do have a client that we visited 3 times a week. And one of the benefits for us as a team approach is we do get kind of a different perspective. Each of us have a different perspective, and then we can kind of collaborate. We had a client a couple years ago where one day I said to my team member who did the majority of the visits for this particular client, I said, does Louis look a little slow to you, like a little bit down? She goes, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. I do feel like he's a little bit, just his personality is a little bit more suppressed than normal. And we kind of talked it over and mentioned it to the client. And she's like, now that you mention it, yeah, I've kind of seen that too. Took him to the vet and he had blood cancer. And so it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh, we were able to help them catch something and get them into the vet a lot sooner than they would have otherwise, just because when you live with your pet, you don't always see those small changes because they are so small. But when we as a service provider come in, even again, if it's a couple times a week, those changes are a lot more noticeable to us. And so I have had clients who say, gosh, what are you seeing? Because this is what I'm seeing. I just want to talk this through with you. And we can kind of help provide maybe more questions that they hadn't thought about or a different perspective. But it's hard. And, to have some pet that you've been loving on for maybe a couple years, and suddenly they get cancer, and then in a couple of weeks, maybe they're not here anymore, or even in a couple of months, they're not here anymore. It can be brutal. It's going to be really emotionally heavy. And it's not something that people are usually comfortable about talking about. And it's often like a disenfranchised because I say, oh, but you're just the pet sitter. Like you couldn't have cared that much. And it's like, no, I sobbed when this pet died or this client moved away. You get attached, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but it is something you do have to kind of carry and learn to manage the longer you're in business.
It really is. We had one that who passed away recently, and they still had a couple other dogs that we were coming over to take care of. And we use a team-based approach as well. So I'm not always over there doing the visits. And man, the first time I came into that house after that dog had passed away, it was, I just walked straight into a brick wall, and it took me several minutes to recollect myself, because all of a sudden the realization of like, oh, okay, this is different now. And still in that moment being okay to text a client and say, hey, I know my first time over here, just want to let you know, really missing Mimsy today, but I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody else, and embracing that part of commiserating with them so that they know that, because then they feel seen, you feel seen. It becomes part of that healing process too.
Absolutely. And for a lot of our clients, again, disenfranchised grief, pet loss is often a disenfranchised grief. They might not have anybody else where they feel safe sharing those memories or feeling like that loss is being honored. And so I think we can, it's an opportunity to really, again, connect with them and let them know how much we care, because we do care, and their pets are very precious to us. And it's kind of a fine line to feel like you're navigating, but just like you said, just a note to say, hey, I'm really thinking about you, and gosh, I really miss them, or I miss this aspect of them. Like meeting me at the door today can go a long way to help them feel better.
Morgan, you've mentioned drop-in visits and walks a couple times. Are those the same services that you started off offering back in 2013?
So really, we started with pet sitting because pet sitting worked around our jobs. And we really didn't advertise the dog walking as much. I think our first year we had one dog walking client and the rest were pet sitting. And then even up until I became full time, I really didn't have a lot of dog walking clients. It was almost all pet sitting because I just didn't have the capacity. And when we first started, my husband and I worked opposite shifts. So I worked like 8 to 5 and he maybe worked like, 3 to 9 or something like that. And so we could kind of cover all of the things that needed to be covered really well with pet sitting, which is a lot harder to do maybe in some other, people's other types of work. But yeah, we really started with the pet sitting and drop-in pet sitting. We never really did live-in care or overnight care. It was almost all drop-in sitting. And then when I went full-time, we really started advertising the dog walking. And that really grew pretty quickly. And then it ended up being about 50%. So we did about 50% pet sitting, 50% dog walking. And then COVID hit. And that kind of decimated our dog walking part. And so now it's more like 75% pet sitting, or maybe 60% pet sitting, and the rest dog walking. So it's really interesting how that has shifted over the years.
Now, do you ever get requests for people who want boarding or live-in care? Because I know that seems like the preponderance of my phone calls these days of they want to board or they want us to live in their home. And that's not something that we offer. And so do you get those kind of phone calls? And if you do, how do you take that conversation? Because I feel like there's that conversation is really hard to take and turn into something more productive or how we can serve them.
Absolutely. We do get those for sure. And it can be hard. When we were really busy, I would just say like, nope, sorry, we don't do that. Like, good luck in your search because we just weren't, there was a time where we weren't taking on any new pet sitting clients because we were just so busy. So that was a lot easier just to say like, nope, I'm sorry. I know how hard it is to find, pet care that you trust. I am honored that you thought of us and I'm so sorry, but we don't provide that service. And now it's a little bit different because we're back to accepting new clients. And so sometimes I do say like, sorry, we do not do overnight service. But we do, these drop-in services, and this is what that looks like. If you're interested in that, I'd be happy to talk with you more. But yeah, it can definitely be hard because, that's like the gold standard in terms of on our end of pet sitting. And I think a lot of people don't understand that it is truly a gold standard, premium pet care. And, they think, oh, overnight pet sitters, I should be able to get that for $30 a night and it's no big deal. And then a lot of us are over here and we're like, well, it's, $250 a night plus midday drop-ins because they don't think about the fact that I've got to pay either myself or somebody else at minimum wage for every hour they're there. And they just don't about that. And there's also, the inconvenience of not in my own home with my own family and my own pets. And so if you can find somebody who wants to do overnight pet care, you need to treat them well because it's a hard service. It is, it's difficult to be sleeping in somebody else's house and, cooking in a different kitchen or, just trying to manage your household plus their household at the same time. So yeah, it's a hard service to provide. I'm always amazed at the people who say like, nope, all I ever do is overnights. And it's like, gosh, you are amazing. Keep going.
It really is. And it's understanding a lot of when we get those phone calls going, okay, this person who's calling me, they have their hierarchy of needs, right? And they have it pretty set. They have their number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of what they need met. And so I can try and talk to them and maybe quote unquote educate them about different options. But if that hierarchy of needs is set for them, then I'm not going to be the one to convince them otherwise, right? And know that going into the conversation, not in a defeatist way, but in a release of pressure for me to have convinced them. Like I'm not trying to every time I get a phone call going, I've got to convert this person. I've got to convert this. Right? It's oh, you want boarding? Okay, well, let me tell you about what we offer and the benefits that it does have, and leave it at that.
I'm not out here like evangelizing like drop-in pet sitting services, right? Because I think it's like the very best option. But it is interesting. You mentioned like people have a hierarchy of needs. I talked to a guy recently who was in a tight spot because his, friend from work was going to take care of their pets and they are going on a 5-day vacation. And like 2 days before they left, they dropped out on them. And so he was really in a pinch trying to find somebody. And he was asking about overnight pet care. And I was like, here's the deal. We don't normally do it. But what we could do is maybe like some longer daytime visits. So maybe instead of coming over for like our standard visit, maybe we come over and we're there for 2 or 3 hours. And he's like, no, I just really want someone to sleep in the house. And I was like, I can appreciate that. Like, I appreciate that that's your, like you said, like, that's your hierarchy of needs. And like, but you also realize your pets are sleeping, and it's like, if I came over for 3 hours during the day, that's a way more people interaction than your dog is going to get by just me sleeping on your couch or something. But yeah, everyone has their hierarchy of needs and there's not a values judgment. It's not like one is better than the other, but yeah, everyone just has their own idea of what they would like. And there's a saying, what is it? People convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. So I'm not out here trying to convince people that what we do is really awesome and like the best thing ever, because it might not meet their needs. And so I just, like you said, I try to take the pressure off and say, hey, this is what we do. We think we're pretty great at it. If you would like this too, we'd be happy to help you. And if not, like, good luck, because it is really hard to find, you want to mesh with a client. And I don't want someone to to like begrudgingly take our services because it's the only option available to them. Or, I've tried to convince them that it's going to be an amazing experience. Like I want them to book with us because they're looking forward to it and they think it's going to be a good choice for their pets, because again, that's a completely different relationship to build with somebody.
Our friends at the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters have a vision. They envision a future where pet care professionals and pet parents collaborate to make a significant impact on the welfare of pets and the pet industry through education, certification, and community outreach. Together, we can make this vision a reality. NAPS is run by its members for its members. It's a completely volunteer-driven association. They offer a trial membership and various webinars to showcase the many NAPS member benefits offered. Visit the NAPS website today at petsitters.org for membership and details and more information. Well, yeah, because then you don't have this cloud hovering over you going, I've got to prove myself. I got to prove myself. I got to do this. I got to
Yes.
do, not that we don't shoot for excellence every single time, but then all of a sudden there becomes this much cloud of dread of like, oh, this is the client that I was on the phone for 45 minutes, really hammering home. And man, I pulled out all the stops in my argument 101 and I got them over here. But now it's like, oh, geez, like now, like, how do I live up to this, or how do I maintain this or meet these expectations? And so, yes, just knowing I can only do so much and that's okay. And at the end of the day, they're going to take that or not. And, they may be back, they may be not, but at least I've told them about our services and let's just let them know that we are an option to their pet care needs.
Absolutely. And that can take, it's a lot easier to say that when you have a lot of clients.
Yeah.
When you're first starting out and you're like, I've got to be everything to everybody and serve, even if they call me and they're leaving at 5:00 tonight and they call me at 1 PM, like I'm going to do it. It's a lot easier to say yes to those type of services when you are building your business and maybe you like the rent is due at the end of the month and or you've got your mortgage to pay. Like it's a lot harder to turn down clients when you really need them, and it's a lot easier to say, oh gosh, I don't love working for anybody who's not in alignment with me. That's kind of it's a place of privilege to be able to say that. But at the same time, we had a client where she chose us because it was kind of last minute. We were the only ones available and it did not go well. Like you said, her expectation was different from what we were doing. She had a lot of family stress going on at the time. And so there was just a lot of impacting factors that were built up, and she did not have a great time. We did not have a great time. And my employee was fairly new at the time. And she goes, it's a lot better to work for people who are excited to have you there. And it's like, yes, it is. But again, it's hard. Like you've got to kind of figure that out and kind of experiment in your business to figure out, who are the people I'd like to serve and what kind of limits maybe do I want to start putting around my services. And, it takes time to figure that out. And you kind of just have to try something and find out if it works or not.
You've said the word "we" quite a lot, and you've mentioned that you work really closely with your husband in the aquarium business, and he helped you with your pet sitting in the early days. How has that relationship been, and what's it been like working so closely with him?
It's interesting when you have somebody who has kind of a different personality type than you. So I'm very much like a big ideas, kind of head in the clouds person. And his first instinct is like, well, what are the details of why this isn't going to work? And sometimes that can be extremely frustrating. But in the end, it usually works out where we're a good balance for each other. But I can tell you, it took a while. We have been together now for, oh my gosh, how many years? Like 16 years, something like that. And it's taken some time to get to the point where we could work like more closely together. And I'd say in the last 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years, it's been a lot easier. We're a little bit more on the same page, and it's been much more collaborative, you could say, because at the beginning, I kind of had my job, he kind of had his job, and actually he started the pet sitting. So we always joke, he's like, you always forget to tell the part about how I was the first pet sitter. And so,
okay.
So here you go, Austin. Morgan, you were the first pet sitter of Lucky Pup Adventures.
Okay, credit where credit's due. Thank you. We'll write that down. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, write that in the show notes. And so anyway, so that then his job changed, and then my job changed, and I started doing more of the pet sitting. And so we've kind of exchanged roles back and forth over the years. He used to like onboard all of the new clients, and I would do more of the pet sitting, and now I kind of do more of both. but it can be hard to figure out a good mix. And so whether you have a partner or a spouse in the business, maybe you have just like a business manager with you, it can be really hard to figure out which roles you should play because we all have different strengths. And so there are a lot of times where I'm like, hey, I need you to review this message I'm going to send to a client because I want to make sure it's coming off, the way that I think it's coming off. And, that kind of stuff can be hard, but it's nice to have somebody, whether it's, again, a partner, a business manager, or just even a close confidant, another pet sitter that you can bounce an idea off of and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of. Like, does this make sense? And that's been really nice to have for sure.
Well, yeah, especially someone who you trust, you have confidence and security in, which that gives you a lot of ability to try new things, to experiment with new things in your business, because sometimes they don't always work out for the best.
Absolutely. And, and I think it's also important to have somebody who knows your business. And I love, I love that your guys' group that you have on Facebook. And sometimes people ask this like really detailed advice question and they don't realize how detailed it is. And it's like, you're going to get a lot of advice here. And some of this is probably terrible advice for your business, but nobody knows that because we don't know your business like you know your business.
Yeah.
And so if you can build a relationship again with a close confidant or a partner or somebody, and so, sometimes your partner doesn't know enough about your business to be able to give you good advice about your business. But if you can find somebody who can really be that sounding board, that's really important. And, I'll say, Colin, you mentioned the experimenting and sometimes things don't work or they think they work out different than you think they're going to. So in January of 2020, our business was really picking up. And so my husband was working at a pet store. He's been working in pet retail for a long time. And our pet sitting business was just getting full enough. And I said, hey, I really need another dog walker. We're not really finding the right kind of person to add to our team. Could you maybe go part-time and you're at work and start part-time dog walking with us? And he's like, yeah, I could probably do that again. So we did that. And after a while, things were getting more busy again. And we said, do you want to go full-time? Do you want to quit? We're going to make this choice. Are you going to quit your job and work full-time in the business together? And he's like, yeah, I suppose I could probably do that. So we did that. He quit his job, which was sort of terrifying because, while at that point, we were in 2022. So we were 2 years out from the pandemic. My little reptilian brain just kept going COVID's going to come back and everything's going to get shut down and everybody's going to leave. And then you're going to be screwed because now there's no extra outside income coming in. And I think there's a lot of people who are probably in that position where their business was grown and now they have two people in that household who are now trying to both make their income off of that business. And, things were going great. Things were kind of picking up. And then in the way that things do, things started going down a little bit again as we kind of hit recession fears towards the end of 2022. And then winter hit, which we are in the Northern Plains. We're up in South Dakota and it gets pretty stinking miserable up here. And this was a really hard winter. And he's like, you know what? I think I need to not be walking dogs full time anymore. And I've got to go back to retail where there's people who I can talk to and get this interaction from and go back to this part of the job that he really did enjoy. He liked where he worked. And so we made the decision then together to say yeah, you can go back to work full time and we'll try to either I'm going to pick up more walks, or we're going to try hiring more people, or, more people on our team have more availability. We'll figure this out, but you have to do something and figure out whether you like it or not. And just because you make one decision in your business doesn't mean you have to stick with that forever. It's okay to be flexible.
It is because, well, I'll say it is. It isn't because in a lot of cases, we see ourselves as being failures, as have not succeeding. I didn't do it right. I didn't do this. I didn't. Why? We go down that track instead of going, I know better, or I have to do something different now. So I'm going to make I'm going to do a different decision that's going to be better fitting for me. And we forget that not just do I change and grow over time, but my business does too. My business has its ups, my business has its downs, my business has its in-betweens, and I need to adapt to make decisions fitting for each one of those and everything in between different scenarios. And that it's just me making good decisions. That's what it is. It's not failing. I'm making a good decision today, but that's That's not what we tell ourselves. That's not what the lizard brain says in the back, because that says, never do this again. You're going to get hurt. Preserving kind of decisions here. Go back to stability. Don't do this again, and just try and stay as normal as possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think too that you learn a lot through failure, quote unquote. Right. We're going to put failure in quotes because we never really fail. We just learn more information. And one of my favorite podcasts is How I Built This. And every single episode, and it took me a while to figure this out, but every single episode is some like bajillionaire who had some horrible business failure and they built it back. Or they learned something new, and they like that what they learned new was the thing that took their business off. And so it's, you never fail. You just learn more information, and you can't learn more information unless you're willing to take a jump. And so we did learn a lot of things. Like I'm not necessarily like some people love reports. Like I am not a numbers report kind of person. It's like the last thing I want to do on my to-do list. I'd rather be like, talking with my clients and like meeting new people. And so I did learn, I'm like, oh gosh, I probably could have caught some of these things 6 months ago if I had been doing like X, Y, or Z. And again, you learn those things. I wouldn't know how we could have made our business better and how we're going to make our business better if we hadn't experienced those things in the first place.
Yeah, you now know better, and you'll do better, right? That's where that comes in, and you just don't know, and it's okay, right? We don't know everything, and we can't be prepared for every single situation. We can do our best, and then we move on and we learn from that, which is a lot easier to say. Again, I keep saying that like it's an easy thing. It's not, right? I just we have to say that of it is a process, and sometimes you don't learn from it for years down the line before you can point back and go, oh, that's why that. Oh, I remember that one thing that happened. That was preparing me for today.
Yeah. And when you're in the weeds of your business, you can't see those things until you do like zoom back out, or maybe you have somebody who can help you zoom out and look at those things. But when you're in it and you're in the day-to-day of maybe you have a team member who's on vacation, or maybe you have a really busy holiday week and suddenly everybody is traveling all at the same time and you are running from, 7 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night, you don't have time to think about all of those things. And so, one thing that as our business is growing is we're trying to figure out this balance of when do I get to stop being the chief everything officer, where I am the dog walker, the scheduler, the customer service representative, the CFO, the COO, all of these things. And when can we start to parse this out, whether it's to maybe our team members who want to take on a little extra responsibility, whether that was my husband and I, okay, are you going to take some of this and I'm going to take some of these other things? Like what fits our personalities best? Like all of that is really challenging, and it does take time. And if you don't have the time and the brain space to devote to that, it's just not going to happen. So it was kind of actually tricky when he decided he's going to quit his job. I managed to get COVID and I was in bed I got hit hard and I was in bed for like 2.5 weeks. And then our dog got cancer and died. And then we brought a new puppy home. And then like the summer crazy schedule took off. And so it was a challenge of trying to find the right time to make all of those things happen. And yeah, if you're not paying attention to it, it's really easy to just keep going with the flow and keep visiting pets without taking that step back and trying to figure out some of those more managerial things, which again can be hard when you're there for the pets. You don't always think about, okay, what does the business part, like what does the business of Lucky Pup Adventures need, which is different from what maybe the team needs or what our clients need.
Right. It takes that time. It also takes being exposed to new ideas and to new ways of thinking. And Morgan, I know you're a big reader. You've got a lot of books. It seems like I don't know how many you read at any given time, but it's
so I actually had to make myself a list because it's hard to go back and I never really keep track. And I've actually started this year off with reading a lot. So I actually have a note on my phone of which books I'm reading and finishing in each month. So in January, I finished 3 books and we're in February. So I've already finished 4 books in February. So it's been a little bit crazy how many books I've been consuming lately.
What have been some of your favorites that you've read? Maybe not just this year, but maybe most influential to you?
Yeah, I think in terms of running the business side, I would say one of the most influential ones is Profit First. And I will say this book in everything if I ever get asked the question, I'm always going to say Profit First, because it really helps set your business up for success on the financial side. And the nice thing about financial or Profit First is that it's like creating an envelope system for your business. And when you do work like a service provider where you do an hour of work and you get paid for that hour of work, it's really easy to divide your finances up in a way that is self-sustaining. And so we have, okay, this much money needs to go to taxes and this much money needs to go to, payroll, and this much money goes to our vehicle expenses, and this much money goes to our profit that we can try to bring home at the end of the day, for taking this risk of being a business owner. And all of these things go in the right envelopes. And so we never run out of money to pay our taxes, and we never run out of money to, pay our employees, because we are dividing things up in a very specific way. So that'd be one. And Colin, you and I have joked about the book, The Gap in the Gain, because that is a book that I will evangelize till the end of time. Because it's a great book for helping people look at the opportunities that are in life and not necessarily all of the challenges that we've had. So I'll say that. And then one of the most profound books I'm reading I just read right now is called The 5 Invitations. And it's kind of a sad book. So you got to prepare yourself. It's not going to be a book that everybody wants to read, but I'm getting ready to present at the Texas Pet Sitter Conference about honoring grief and loss as a pet sitting business. And this book, it was written by a man who is a founder of a Buddhist hospice center. And it is an absolutely beautiful book. And I will say, so in 2020, I'm going to go back just slightly. In 2020, we had a horrible year. Not only was it COVID kind of took over everything, but my beloved 2.5-year-old dog, we had to decide to put her down for behavioral euthanasia reasons. And that just kind of ripped my heart out and broke it into a bajillion pieces. And then we did that. And about 2 weeks later, my husband was diagnosed with a bladder tumor, which does not happen in 30-year-old people. That's usually something that happens to like 90-year-old men or people who've been smoking for 70 years. And so between business kind of in the toilet, our dog dying, and the husband getting cancer, I started to look at the world differently. And I decided that, yes, we have to, plan for the future and make sure that we're setting ourselves up to have a good, prosperous future. At the same time, we need to live right now, because, in a moment, everything can change for you. And so I kind of came up with our new philosophy and our new mission in life, which is to live full and live happy. And one of the things that has brought me to this book that I was mentioning, The 5 Invitations, is he talks about what death can teach us about living life. And how can we live life more fully through the lens of death? And again, this book is not going to be for everybody, but it is. It was really impactful, and especially as I'm writing this presentation, to have this really hard conversation with a group of pet sitters. It's been a really good book. But yeah, I think there's a lot about living in the moment, and as pet sitters, we have a tendency to burn ourselves out and overcommit. And if we are not purposefully living a full and happy life now, and we say, it's one of the things about The Gap in the Gain, I'll bring that book back in here. In The Gap in the Gain, there's a lot of people who say, well, I'll be happy when I have a manager to help me with my business, and then I won't be so burnt out. Or I'll be happy when I hire my first employee, or I'll be happy when my business hits $50,000 in revenue or $300,000 in revenue, or whatever that mythical thing in the future is. Let's not wait until then to be happy. Let's not wait until then to live a full life. But also, if you're waiting for some future thing to happen in order for you to be happy, you're probably not going to be happy when you get it, because it's just this like arbitrary signpost that you happened upon. Whereas if we can do our efforts to live a full and happy life now, no matter what happens in the future, whether you get that revenue goal or you hire that person, you'll still have a happy life. And if you don't, it's okay, because you'll still have a happy life. Like, I think that's really important. So that's my soapbox tangent moment there, Colin.
I'll take it. And Morgan, I can't tell you how thankful I am for you giving us some of your time today and walking us through giving not just our clients delight, but we taking delight in the life that we have today and taking full advantage of that, whatever that looks like. I know that there's a lot more that we could talk about here, and you actually have a lot going on. So how can people get in touch with you and follow along with everything that you're doing?
Yeah. So the best place to follow kind of what we've got going on is on Instagram. I'm a big Instagram person. I share a lot of behind the scenes. So if you happen to be on Instagram, you can find us @_Lucky Pup. And I post a lot of like kind of personal things there too. It's like my cute little beagle puppy. He often makes an appearance and things like that. We do, like we talked just very briefly, we do memory flame candles, which is born out of the loss of our dog Olive that I mentioned. And that is @memoryflame.co on Instagram or memoryflame.co online. And those are kind of the two places. And then I am starting, like I've done a couple presentations for different organizations, and I talk a little bit about that over on luckypupliving.com. So those are a few places you can find us.
Cool. Well, I will have links to those and some of the books that we've talked about in the show notes, so listeners can go get click to that. Morgan, it's been an immense pleasure. And again, I can't thank you enough for your time. I've just really enjoyed today.
Well, thank you, Colin. I always enjoy any chance I can spend with you and Megan. This has been a lot of fun.
What does it mean to bring delight and to delight your clients? It starts with understanding what delights you and what you can bring to the table. Only then will you be able to do this consistently and reliably, predictably, and enthusiastically when you are with the pets. I know there are days where it can be a drudgery, where something just doesn't work out or you're frustrated and can go by in a blur. But by tapping into an internal motivation, by something that you can see in yourself for your reason, your passion for being there with that cat on that floor on a random Tuesday with thunderstorms going on outside, when you can tap into that, it doesn't just make the moment special for the client. It makes it special for you, which is critical when we think about the longevity of our business and our ability to consistently provide the high-quality service that we come to expect from ourselves. We'd love to know how you delight your clients and what delight you find in the services that you offer. You can send that to feedback@petsitterconfessional.com. We'd love to be able to read that out on an episode and continue the conversation. We want to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. And thank you so much for listening. It means so much that you're here. We really appreciate you. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.
Thank you.